Hi guys, it's Ariel from Seattle Coffee Gear, and today we are going to be making some Christmas drink recipes. We're going to be making 3 using the Phillips Carina, which is a Seattle Coffee Gear exclusive. So the flavors that I'm going to be incorporating are going to be nutmeg, chocolate. We have a gingerbread latte that we're going to be making. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So the first drink that I'm going to be making is a Bourbon Flip. And a flip is similar to eggnog, but it's a bit lighter because it doesn't actually have the cream. So you're still going to get that nice creamy mouthfeel without it coating the back of your throat. So it's going to be rich but not overpowering. And what I did was I actually used the Carina to brew about 4 shots of espresso, which gets you up to about 8 ounces. And I made a syrup with it because for something like this, you don't actually want to use a fresh shot of espresso because there's egg involved, and nobody wants a scrambled egg cocktail because that's just bleh. So what I did was I replaced the water that you would normally use for a simple syrup with espresso. So it's 8 ounces of espresso to a cup of sugar, and you just mix it until the sugar dissolves, and boom, you've got a delicious, delicious espresso syrup. And I used Espresso Republic's Chino Valley blend. So this guy right over here, it's got tasting notes of green grape, licorice, and toffee. So the toffee and licorice notes are going to kind of play nicely into the spice and caramel notes of the bourbon that I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with an empty drink shaker. And you want 2 ounces of bourbon. One ounce of espresso syrup. And into that we are going to crack an egg, and it's ideal to actually have the eggs out at room temperature because it's going to whip more easily. All right, so we're going to start with a dry shake, and you want to shake this pretty vigorously. Just keep in mind if you don't have a drink shaker that has a screw on top, but it's more of like a cobbler style shaker, you want to make sure that you're holding it really securely because the eggs will bubble up and sometimes the lid can pop off. So we're going to shake this to get everything frothy. So I shook that for about 30 seconds. And it's nice and incorporated. I've got some bubbles in there. So now I'm going to add my ice cubes. I only need about 5 cubes. All right, now for this next bit, you're going to have to shake it for about a full minute to get everything incorporated. So basically shake it until you feel like your arm is going to fall off and you're going to die, and then you're going to strain it into a glass. All right, now we're going to double strain it just in case there were any egg solids in there. And you can see that your work has paid off, because there's all this beautiful sort of creamy foam that comes out. And it looks a bit like eggnog, doesn't it? And that egg is nicely incorporated in there, so it's nice and thick. Okay, I'm gonna set my strainer aside. And then you want to garnish it with a generous grating of fresh nutmeg. And that's just going to kind of provide you really nice fragrance, and that's where we're getting kind of like our holiday feel from, that nice warmth of the nutmeg. Oops, I lost my nutmeg. Anyway, there you have it. That is our coffee bourbon flip, garnished with fresh nutmeg. And now we're going to move on to the next drink. All right, the next drink that we are going to be making is a gingerbread cookie latte. So what I did was I actually made a gingerbread cookie syrup / sauce with gingerbread spice, and then I added a little bit more ginger to that, ground ginger. So I added an additional 1/4 teaspoon of ginger and 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, just to kind of zhuzh it up and make it a bit more spicy. I put in, I'd say about 1/2 jar of cookie butter, and then the standard, I did 1/2 cup of water to 1/2 cup of sugar, and just kind of let that warm up until the spices kind of gave up their flavor to the sauce, and then I strained it and let it cool. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. So I'm going to brew a double shot of espresso into my little cup here. Awesome. Okay. So now that that's done, I'm going to take an ounce of my gingerbread cookie syrup. And it's definitely on the thicker side. I'm just going to get that in here. Okay. Give it a good stir. You want to make sure everything is dissolved. That way you don't just have a bunch of syrup at the bottom of your cup. And I'm just going to steam some milk now. And we're just waiting for the steam one to heat up. The nice thing about this is it does actually do a pretty good job of milk texturing. You don't really have to worry about that technique. You still want there to be a good whirlpool of milk, so all of the bubbles get incorporated. So I always keep one hand on my frothing pitcher, so I can feel the temperature. And you can get the milk pretty hot. The Carina will steam for about 90 seconds before it automatically shuts off to prevent overheating, but you will get it pretty hot. starting to get too hot for my hands, so I'm going to give it another few seconds. Now I'm going to turn it off. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe the outer part off, and then I'm just going to give it a purge really quick to get rid of any milk that got sucked up into the steam wand. Like so. Okay. And it does get the milk pretty fluffy, so you do have to groom it quite a bit. We don't want to do too much foam just because we're going to be topping this off with whipped cream. So I'm actually going to use the spoon to hold back a bit of that foam here. Okay, we're going to leave a little bit of room. Give it one more stir. I can smell the gingerbread spices. It smells amazing in here right now. Okay, I'm going to top it off with whipped cream. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of a drizzle of the sauce over the top. And you can add more spices to this, or you can top it off with maybe like a little gingerbread cookie or a piece of crystallized ginger. I'm just going to grate a little bit more nutmeg over the top. All right, and there we have it. This is our gingerbread cookie latte, and we're going to move on to the next drink. All right, so our last Christmas beverage of the day is going to be a spicy mocha. So I made a mocha syrup with 1/4 cup of just pure baker's cocoa, a teaspoon of Chinese 5-spice, and 2 dried chilies, and then the standard 1/2 cup of water to 1/2 cup of sugar. And you basically just let it simmer. You don't want to bring it to a boil, but you let it simmer until the spices are incorporated and some of the water has reduced, so it's a bit sort of thicker in texture. And Chinese 5-spice has fennel, nutmeg, clove, black pepper, cinnamon. So I just thought it would add a little bit more depth of flavor than just doing like a chili chocolate kind of beverage. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to do 1 ounce of our dark chocolate syrup. Into here. All right, and I'm going to brew a double shot of espresso into our little cup. It's definitely a simpler drink, just syrup, espresso, steamed milk, whipped cream, and then you can do like a chocolate drizzle. You can maybe do a sprinkling of chili powder just to kind of garnish it. If you want to get fancy, you can maybe put a little star anise on top, like a whole one. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and give this guy a stir. And you want to make sure you kind of scrape the sides down, that way you get all of that syrup incorporated. Okay, now I'm just going to steam some milk. Just waiting for it to heat up. There we go. And again, we're going to steam until it gets too hot for my hand. I'm going to let it run for a few seconds after that and then turn it off. You want to steam a little bit hotter than you normally would with drinks like this spicy mocha or the gingerbread latte, just because the syrups are thicker, so they tend to cool the espresso down quite a bit. So you want to steam the milk so it's a little bit hotter. I would say rather than 150, you want to steam it up to 170. Okay, so now it's too hot for my hand. So I'm going to maybe count to like 6 or 7. Turn it off. Okay, and you always want to immediately clean the steam wand afterwards. Just like that. Okay, so now I'm just going to groom my milk a little bit. And you can either hold the foam back with a spoon or you can start high like this. You can see that not a whole heck of a lot of foam made it in there. We're just going to give this a stir. We'll top it off with some whipped cream. And then I'm going to rinse my spoon off really quick here. I'm just going to garnish it with a little drizzle of the sauce here. And you can garnish it with whatever you want. You can garnish it with the drizzle. Again, you can maybe top it off with a little chili powder or maybe a little, like a whole star anise just on top. But that is going to be our spicy mocha. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas holiday. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.